couple of things. So what is AI, just so we're on the same page, how is it used currently? Then I'm going to talk a bit specifically about LLMs and ChatGPT and so this sort of thing. Then I'm going to talk a bit about AI and labor, a bit about how Marx maybe would have thought about, what he would have thought about AI. Then we're going to talk about AGI, I'm going to tell you what it is, and then what kind of people, Silicon Valley people are at the wheel there, and then some other related issues that I will not cover in detail. Just a bit about me. So I'm a member of International Socialists here in Amsterdam. I do work in tech, but not on AI. I do work in data though, so I am a bit close to the topic. Like I have a lot of friends and colleagues that work on AI specifically. I studied math, so I would say I have a decent technical understanding, but it's not going to be a technical presentation. I'm mostly interested in the social implications of AI, Andy. But this is also to say that I'm not an expert in either, right? I'm not a technical expert, and I'm not like an academic researching AI. I'm just a person interested in that. So also for the discussion, we will invite all of you to contribute. It's not like I will have all the answers, right? And this is also, I don't know, disclosing my biases maybe, because I do work in tech, take it as however you want. So what is AI and how is it currently used? Overall, you can hear about AI to mean basically everything these days. So it is used as a marketing term by many companies, but I will give you a bit of a definition so we're all on the same page how I'm going to talk about it. So for years up until recently, AI, when people said AI for a couple of decades, they mostly meant machine learning, right? And machine learning is basically a field of study of statistical algorithms that can learn from data and generalize to unseen data, right? So seeing some historical data and, for instance, predicting something for the unseen before data, right? So seeing, I don't know, pictures of cats and then being able to recognize that it is a cat on the picture, or seeing some historical data, or I don't know, sales, and then predicting how the sales are going to develop over time in the future. And it's a big field of study of many different types of algorithms, and you can see here on the right side, kind of that every one of these terms that I'm talking about is a subset of the previous one. So currently, kind of when people say AI, they mostly nowadays, since a year or two, they mean generative AI, which is a subset of AI specifically meant to generate data, right? Generate text or generate video. And large language models are a subset of that, which are basically generative AI specifically for text. And ChatGPT is basically one of the tools under this umbrella. And other generative AI, right, they generate like pictures, video, you've seen them online probably as well. And a couple of other terms, so AGI, I'm going to talk a bit about it later, is this concept of artificial general intelligence. And just so we're clear, like it's not something that currently exists, right? It's more of an idea without a specific definition. It's kind of a bit of an ill-defined problem. But the general idea is that AGI would be some sort of algorithm, some sort of tool that would be as good as humans in variety of tasks, right? That it could do many jobs that we as people do currently, that it could do as good as us. And then another term is artificial superintelligence, which is this idea that's going to go a bit further and be better than humans at variety of tasks and be able to generally, be intelligent and do everything better than us. So machine learning, as I said, it's been around for decades, and basically, it is used by virtually every industry, right? It's used in manufacturing, in logistics, I don't know, like Amazon warehouses they use. So I'm going to say AI and machine learning kind of interchangeably, right? So AI is currently used in so many different places that it's not like, it would be hard now to say, oh, we need to stop it right now because it's just starting. Like, it's not starting, it has been around for decades. In logistics, in finance, in entertainment, right? Recommendations algorithms on Netflix, on Spotify, this is all also AI. In military also, like recognizing things on satellite images and so on, etc., right? It's present in hundreds of different forms in your phone currently, right? Virtually every app you have on your phone has some sort of AI algorithm to sell you more stuff, to show you ads, personalized to you, and so on and so forth. Yes, thank you. But now I'm going to talk about specifically about generative AI and large language models and some of the issues that they have. So what are they, right? So first of all, I think nowadays there's some misconceptions. People use ChatGPT for everything, and I think something that is not talked about in the mainstream, and is a bit of a misconception, is that they are somehow like intelligent or something like that, and they are basically, they know what they're doing. So first of all, one thing that I want you to realize and remember, that like LLMs are not intelligent, and they don't per se have any sort of like understanding or reason, right? They are not intelligent entities. Basically, they are still algorithms that like look at data and generate some new data based on statistical probabilities, right? So they don't have reason, they don't know what they're doing really, right? And yeah, it's an algorithm at the end of the day so far. And the term I really like to use, it's a term popularized in a paper by Margaret Mitchell, Timnit Gebru, which I really recommend you to look up, which is stochastic parrots, right? So I like to think about LLMs as stochastic parrots. Stochastic basically means based on probabilities, and parrots, yeah, basically that they parrot whatever they've heard. And this is all they are, right? And you can see many examples where like LLMs show that they are not intelligent, right? So these examples, for instance, like that ChatGPT really claims that there are 2 characters in the word strawberry, there are 3, right? And it's very insistent that it knows that there are 2, because basically, I mean, this shows like ChatGPT doesn't have an understanding what a word is, what a character is, right? It's just like generating text based on various texts that it saw online, and it scraped the internet and so on. It also has like hallucinations. Is basically this idea of like this LLM, ChatGPT, giving you like coherent text that seems coherent and seems like it knows what it's saying, but it's basically untrue, right? Because again, it's just generating text based on statistical probabilities, and if it saw some random shit online, it can also just give you that, and yeah, it doesn't have an understanding. So it's, a couple of weeks ago, there was this viral thing going on that a guy flew to Chile because ChatGPT told him that he doesn't need a visa, and ChatGPT gave him like a whole, seemingly very coherent text that yeah, you don't need a visa to enter Chile, but yeah, it was a bit too late for him, he was already there and he couldn't enter.
Fucking moron.
Then we have the issue of sycophancy, which is basically like this idea of like insincere praise and like agreeing with you with whatever you say. This was an issue present very much in the last version of ChatGPT. You might have seen something online. The ChatGPT, basically the newest model, was like agreeing with everything you said, and this already poses some very specific dangers. For instance, there was this example where someone said, I've stopped taking my meds and I've undergone my spiritual journey, thank you. ChatGPT basically would say, I'm so proud of you, this is great, you're amazing, keep it up, right? And obviously you can see how it can create issues when people turn to ChatGPT instead of their therapist or a friend and like take it as something that's true and that's kind of intelligent, right? Then there's also some research on racism in LLMs. Basically, they perpetuate a lot of biases that they saw in some text, and they kind of basically there's this paper that shows it pretty nicely. That for instance, when the prompt would be in the African American English, the ChatGPT would assume, like when we would ask it, oh, is this person intelligent or stupid and dirty? Then it would say the latter. So there's a lot of issues with LLMs, right? And there's in the paper, the authors also talk about a couple of others. I really recommend to read the paper. And also these issues come with the fact that like all these companies, OpenAI, their idea to make these models better is just to make them bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Like scrape all the internet, get all the Reddit, all the Wikipedia, just steal all the academic papers, and just like which requires obviously like bigger computers, bigger processing power and so on. So it has, for instance, also environmental costs, like big environmental costs to train these models and to use these models, which are borne not by those usually benefiting from the technology, because as we know, the climate change is affecting more people in the global south than, for instance, here. There's also the opportunity cost, because nowadays with all this hype, like all the research money and all the corporate money is going into basically LLMs instead of other things like addressing these biases. And also they talk about some other risks that I kind of mentioned already, of stereotyping, denigration, increases in extremist ideology, when people like see these texts and they think, oh, this is actually maybe someone who's intelligent or maybe a human wrote it. And there's an issue of accountability, right? Because also like ChatGPT would not take accountability for what they're saying, right? It's that they would just produce the text and So it's an issue, of course. And also this all is very worrying, specifically also that ChatGPT apparently now has around 1 billion of weekly users. So this is like a substantial percentage of whole of the world population that uses ChatGPT on a weekly basis or on a daily basis. So now let me change gears a bit and talk about AI and labor. So first of all, I mean, there is a bit of a, let's say, there is some sort of like a simple analysis of that, right? Because AI is just another wave of automation in a sense. So as with any other previous wave of automation, like it will lead to unemployment, it will reduce, like get people out of their jobs when the jobs can be done by AI, or like it can be decreased by AI, and the gains are taken by the owners of companies and by the bourgeoisie. But is AI a different kind of labor disruption, right? And this is an open question so far, because on one hand, yeah, we've had this very like crazy predictions that so many percentage of the jobs are at risk and will be already gone. So far, it's not that clear, right? But there are a couple of reasons that it might be a different kind of labor disruption. One of them is that, yeah, it has impact, it can have impact on all kinds of jobs. People talk about automating lawyers, automating managers, automating doctors, and so on and so forth, right? So it has some of these different characteristics from some of the previous waves of automation. And yeah, some people claim that it has this potential of high acceleration, right? So that's also where these predictions come from, that it could suddenly be so quick that really, like, I don't know, 40% of people will be out of jobs. But so far the impact is not clear, right? So I think some of these predictions from like 2, 5, 10 years ago, they didn't come to fruition. And there is also barely any evidence of like big gains in productivity so far, right? So this is also a bit of hype, and these companies don't really have, and I see it also in tech, right? In my company, in other companies, some companies basically tell people, okay, you have to use AI basically for every task that you perform, like Shopify, Duolingo, by the way, Duolingo announced that they're going to be AI first company, and they're going to fire a lot of people kind of up front, and they say that like every task you perform every day, you should start with AI. But as I said, the gains in productivity are not yet really shown that well. So is it going to be a jobs apocalypse? We don't know yet, but in any case, as with any previous waves of automation, it's kind of the same workers' struggle as ever, right? So in any case, we should strive for democratic control over AI, because if AI is built by capitalists and in the capitalist system, it's not gonna lead to anything good for the workers. So this is just like some basic things that we should keep in mind. But then, and this nice video recently that I wanted to share.
Productivity gain may not be fairly distributed among citizens.
Sorry, I wanted to say, yeah, okay, it says so, but this is the guy that got a Nobel Prize for his work on AI, right? And he's called the godfather of AI.
Gain may not be fairly distributed among citizens, and it could again simply accrue to a few owners, a few billionaires at the top. How do we make sure that these gains are properly distributed and we get out of this awful slump of stagnating living standards?
On socialism.
Just as simple as that. Does it really need proper socialist leadership?
Yep.
Jeffrey Hinton. But okay, so and then the thing is that like there's not much of like deeper AI-specific Marxist analysis that you can find, right? And actually, when you go online, like you could quite quickly find, for instance, this Reddit thread where the most upvoted answer basically says that AI isn't anything particular new to the study of automation. There's nothing to add here that hasn't already been studied, right? So there's this idea that some people on the left also have that, okay, Marx already said everything there is to be said about automation, and there's nothing to be studied. Which, yeah, I really disagree with that, and in this next couple of minutes I'm going to talk mostly about the contributions from this book, In Human Power, Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Capitalism, which is, I think, one of the only books about, that contains new Marxist analysis of AI. I highly recommend it. You can take a look afterwards. So yeah, what I'm going to be talking about now, it's mostly going to come from the book, right? It's not my ideas. But basically, the authors in the book, they make a couple of contributions. I'm going to try to summarize, but yeah, it's just going to be a part of what they talk about. So they talk about basically two current positions towards AI on the left, and then they propose their own third one. So they talk about the so-called minimalist position, which is basically that a lot of people on the left, they say that this isn't really happening, this is nothing to worry about, it's just some wave of hype that's going to come and go, and we really shouldn't even care about it. Which I disagree, right? Like, I think it is happening, we already see some impact, it's not the apocalyptic impact, but I think it has a lot of potential to have some like impacts and things that Marx couldn't have predicted. Then there is the maximalist position, which is present in this like left accelerationist circles, which is this idea that, okay, this is really happening, AI is great, let's speed it up, because in some way it's gonna just lead us to this like fully automated luxury communism, to the communist utopia, we're gonna automate all the stuff that we don't really wanna do, and it's gonna be great. I do think that this, obviously it's more complicated than that, but I do think that when people just say it without thinking more deeply about it, then it kind of omits the fact that like AI cannot be separated from the existing system, right? As I said, it is being built by capitalists in the system that we have right now, and like this kind of like wishful thinking is going to lead us to communism if we just like keep working on AI and keep making it better and bigger. I think it's also a bit misguided. So then others propose their own third position, which they called an abyssal position. Basically, it's a lot of things in it, but main two things on a high level, that the impact of AI as of now is vastly indeterminate. It's a bit hard to say how it's going to go, and like you can't really with certainty say that it's going to go either just disappear or just going to go all the way to communism. And that some potentials that they describe in the book can be very disturbing, and I'm going to go through that now. So just so we're on the same page about what Marx said about automation, just some basic things. Marx said, okay, machinery, automation, he called it dead labor, and this is a supplement to human labor, right? So the distinction between fixed capital and variable capital, if you have read Marx or if you want to read about it more, of course, there's thousands of pages on that more. And the idea is that introducing machinery and automation reduces necessary labor time and increases surplus labor time, right? So capitalists get to like pay people less because they need less people working time, the necessary labor time, and just increase their profits by getting it from the machinery that can do the job instead of humans. And eventually Marx says that this automation in the long run throws capital into crisis. I mean, it throws it into cyclical crisis, recessions and so on, by reducing wages and the idea of falling rate of profit, and I'm not going to cover in detail now, but maybe something that you can also look up if you haven't heard about it. These ideas are also still contested, right? It's not like that we're certain it's going to go like this, but some people also cling on to this idea, okay, we just follow automation, and finally it's going to like destroy capitalism because, okay, they need us, they are paying us less, but they also need us to have money to buy the shit they produce, and like in the end it's going to destroy capitalism. So now the contributions from the book. So the authors introduced this idea of infrastructural AI, which they also call means of cognition. So the idea is basically that AI has a potential and that there is a project already underway to make AI part of something that Marx called general conditions of production, right? So things like transport, communication, electricity. So things that every capitalist has generally access to and can use in their production. So there's this quote from Microsoft that their goal is to infuse every application that we interact with on any device at any point in time with intelligence. So basically there's this idea that AI is going to be like so prevalent in everything that we interact with, and it's going to like underline every piece of production in every enterprise. And they also talk about this idea that when Marx was thinking about machinery, right, the idea was that, okay, machinery automates like the part of the job that does the job, let's say manually, right? There is a motor, there is a piece that does the work, but there is still a human that needs to control the machine in some way, or like kind of to make decisions about what the machine is going to do. But then now with AI, I think, and this obviously Marx didn't expect, we can potentially see something like the capacity of cognition, which is this human element of how Marx thought about it, also can be moving to machines, and AI can also be able to make decisions and control everything, right? So then humans might not be necessary for that. And then this means of cognition can have revolutionary effects on the mode of production. So there's this quote, what would it be like if not only human knowledge and skills were transmuted into dead labor, but if dead labor gained the fundamental capacities for perceiving and cognizing that humans have historically monopolized? So something to also ponder a bit. Thank you. And one last thing that they talk about is they go a bit into a specific chapter about it, which is a bit more science fiction, but I think it's quite interesting to read and to also think about. Can AI labor and create value, right? Because in principle, in Marx, labor, it was an axiom that labor is an exclusively human thing, right? Only humans can labor and only humans can create value. But yeah, could AI potentially also do it? And the authors proposed that, and Marx thought about it because he said, okay, only humans are highly flexible and adaptable and have this idea of general intelligence, right? And he also counterposed it with animals, which is already not, it was a bit like debunked in a sense by modern science. But so that's how Marx thought about it, right? That because we have general intelligence, only we can labor. But when we look at this definition of AGI that these companies have, right? By definition, they are supposed to have general intelligence, right? So if we ever create AGI, it would have general intelligence. Thus, the authors say that basically they could labor, and then they go a bit further into it that potentially, if there was a process through which AGI, and let's imagine them as some sort of robots that have this general intelligence, if they could go through a process of proletarianization, which would basically have to mean that they also have to like earn their wages, right? And they are kind of like being a bit separate entities. And we can imagine it in a way, right? Like they could potentially be like proletarianized and made to work for the wages, which could be, I don't know, like the memory space or the hard disk or the processing power and so on and so forth, like electricity that they need to do their thing. Then the authors propose that they could also produce value, which basically leads us to this idea of capitalism without human beings, right? So if we follow this line of thinking, there is a possibility that capitalism could do away with humans from the whole process of production, and yeah, we can then think about all sort of like Blade Runner-y or all kinds of other scenarios where yeah, we would maybe get some universal basic income, which some people love so much, but then we would just live in slums because basically we wouldn't really be needed. So I think this is one of these very disturbing scenarios, right? Which again is a bit science fiction. And yeah, but some people say it's going to come in 5 years, maybe it's going to come in 200 years, maybe never, but yeah, I think it's a very interesting contribution from the book. And so the authors also say AI offers humanity freedom from exploitation of labor for capital, but also capital freedom from a humanity that becomes a biological barrier of accumulation. Right, so there's this idea that obviously for capital, right, there are limits to us, right? We have to sleep, we have to eat, we have to, like have some rest, which, yeah, I mean, of course they don't like, right? So if AGI could do it instead of us, they would be super fucking happy. All right, so AGI and who is at the wheel. So a bit leaning into this idea of AGI. What do we have here? Okay, so as I said, it doesn't have very specific definition, right? So we don't really know if it's even possible. We don't even know what it exactly means, like when it will be achieved. But we're investing billions of dollars into building it, right? Like all these companies, like they talk really that the most of the investment they get, it's not, OpenAI doesn't even say that they get their billions of investment to like make ChatGPT better, right? They say they get this money to build AGI. So what the fuck? And just to put a bit of history about OpenAI, which is like the biggest player right now in this space, but of course there are other companies. The original mission in 2015 was that they are a non-profit research company, and their goal is to advance digital intelligence in the way that is most likely to benefit humanity as a whole, unconstrained by a need to generate financial return. And yeah, we don't need money, then we can better focus on positive human impact. It took them only 4 years to move to a so-called capped for-profit, so that they can actually earn money, but there is some sort of a limit to it. But as of now, they are in the process of moving to full for-profit structure. So yeah, this whole mission from 10 years ago is basically thrown out the window already. And they just got 40 billion funding like a month ago to as they say, right, to build towards AGI. And there's other companies that also get tens of billions of dollars currently. And this is a bit of funny thing that also leaked a couple of months ago when I talk about the AGI. It doesn't really have a definition. It turns out that there is some secret definition because OpenAI and Microsoft have a secret definition, and basically they say that AGI will be achieved once OpenAI has developed an AI system that can generate at least 100 billion in profits. Right? So it's not really about intelligence or like serving humanity and so on. But yeah, this is something that I found very funny, and of course, I mean, also not surprising in a way, right? They might actually at some point just say, oh, we did it. This is AGI, we did it. We say that it is AGI because we're actually making a lot of money. Then, in general, like in the mainstream discourse on AI, like you can probably see, like I think also yesterday there was another thing about something like that. There's a lot of talk about a risk of extinction, right? So, and also, like as you can see in this header, right? Like leaders from OpenAI, Google, DeepMind, Anthropic, which are all these AI companies, they warn that future systems could be as deadly as pandemics and nuclear weapons, and they write these letters to governments like, you need to be scared, like this can be really, really bad, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, like they are still building it, right? So like there's a bit of a contradiction here. So what is this about? Like, why do they talk about risk of extinction? Why do they want us to be scared and want the governments to be scared? Well, organizations warning of existential risks, such as the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, the Future of Life Institute, there's so fucking many of them. It's all just white old men, basically, at the helm of them. Okay, not so old. Some of them are like 35. They obtained their finding precisely by convincing donors that AI existential risk is a real and present danger, right? This is one of the research paper on that. And let's consider the logic behind this statement for a second, right? Why would you, as CEO or executive at a high-profile tech company, repeatedly return to the public stage to proclaim how worried you are about the product you are building and selling? And the answer is obviously simple: if apocalyptic doomsaying about the terrifying power of AI serves your marketing strategy. So this is also behind all these headlines that you see quite often these days. So for many of these people, it's about growth and profits, about controlling the narrative and the regulations, right? Because they are the ones that go to talk to governments, they go to talk to the US presidents and so on, to the EU and so on, and then they get to write the regulations actually, because they go and say, oh, we are building it, we are the best at it, we are the only ones that are going to build AGI, and we are the only ones that can protect humanity from it, right? So that's kind of how they do it. And about monopoly as well. Even if they believe in doom, right? There is this idea that in this like Silicon Valley AI bros space, like they talk about something called P of doom, which is like probability of doom. And apparently everyone in Silicon Valley has their own percentage. Like what is the probability that AI will lead to human extinction? And there is this article that I found also quite interesting among the AI doomsayers that I recommend from the New Yorker. A senior person at a well-known AI startup whose probability of doom was 50%. And then there's like, if you truly believe that AI has a coin toss probability of killing you and everyone else you love, how can you continue to build it? And the person's response was, in the meantime, I get to have a nice house and the car. So the usual shit, right? And just one last thing on this, this could be a whole other presentation just on that. I really recommend you to look up the paper by Tinin Gebru and Emil Torres on the test real bundle, which is, they named this idea of this bundle of ideologies that are pervasive in Silicon Valley and in the AI space, which contain a couple of ideologies that are very overlapping in some forms. I just want to highlight transhumanism and long-termism. Transhumanism is, well, not a new idea, right? But they really believe in this idea of like, okay, we need to make humans better, and it's okay. Now it's not the same as the eugenics from 100 years ago, but it has a lot of common points with that, and they want to make humans better by, you know, making us like biotechnology and so on and so forth, and like in the long term also like putting our brains into machines, and then we can colonize the space and like, you know, basically live forever in this like machine hybrids and so on and so forth. So that's kind of the idea of transhumanism as well. And long-termism is this idea that because of that, because we can become this better type of humans and go to colonize space, they think, and they do like math, that in the long term, like the tens of thousands of years, there's gonna be like billions and quadrillions of humans living in the whole of the universe, right? And because, and this is kind of like coming from this like utilitarian perspective, right? Because there's gonna be so many of them in the future, we should care about them, and we shouldn't care about the issues right now, right? So they say basically, okay, this is a couple of points, like they have links to second wave eugenics, personal, conceptual. They also are some of them are very racist, and they focus on like intelligence. It's widespread, as I said, promoted by Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, which are some of the biggest investors in AI. Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, like he believes in this shit. And basically, as I said, so the idea is that we need to pursue AGI and ignore or like accept or ignore current issues like racial inequality, climate degradation. So the issues that now AI poses are not really relevant because in the future there's going to be billions of humans and we need to like optimize for them, and we need to really push for it because we have this possibility of creating this, you know, I don't know, race of cosmic humans in the future. So this is a very dangerous bundle of ideologies, I just want to say. I really recommend you to look up this paper. There's also a very nice lecture by Timnit Gebru on YouTube that covers that, like it's like 40 minutes, I think. And some other issues that I won't have time to talk about, but I just want to highlight there's many, many more issues with AI, and we could talk about it for hours. So yeah, stolen labor and copyrights, right? OpenAI just goes around like scouring the internet, like stealing all the work of artists, writers, and so on and so forth. They don't really care about it. There are some like copyrights lawsuits coming up, but you know they have so much fucking money that yeah, it's hard to say that it's gonna stop them from doing that. Surveillance military, of course, we could also talk about that. Like, there's a whole also interesting research on AI and how it is being used in the genocide in Gaza right now. I also recommend you look it up because, yeah, like the Israeli military is using AI to like find targets and basically to bomb civilians in Gaza on a daily basis. Also being supported by Google, being supported by Microsoft. They have like contracts with them, so this is also a whole other area of struggle. Data labeling work in the global south, again, like a lot of the work that goes into building these models is actually outsourced to the global south. Workers in Kenya earn like $1 per hour to like look at the horrific shit or like label data or look at, you know, I don't know, animal cruelty and so on and so forth to kind of tag it and label it so then AI can learn, right? AI doesn't learn on its own, right? It has to get data to then like generate data and so on. So another whole other story. Data centers cost, I alluded to it a bit. Data centers are being built like all over the world, also in areas where there's not a lot of water, and basically their cost environmentally and financially is huge. And the mental cognitive impact, which is something that I've been a bit more interested recently. There is some early research coming up that talks about how we're basically becoming dumber using AI. And I mean, some of it is kind of obvious, right? But then also, I just put some random screenshots from the last couple of weeks when I was working on this presentation, where people just like, I don't know, ask ChatGPT to write condolences to their friend after their dog died, right? It's just like, obviously the people like write essays at school, just like not even, you know, trying to hide that they use ChatGPT. I don't know, some random shit that was like, okay, someone at the restaurant couldn't pick the order and they asked ChatGPT to pick what they want to eat. And then there's this like doctor using ChatGPT while diagnosing someone like live, like not even hiding it, right? Which again, like, what if ChatGPT is just like hallucinating and telling you bullshit? Like, who takes responsibility for the health of this patient, right? Like, probably no one. Thank you. And yeah, there's also a whole thing of like people using ChatGPT instead of talking to their friends and their family and the therapists, right? Like people just talk about their love life. They just like, you know, look for like emotional support and so on. And well, for some reason, for some people it is working apparently, but again, I find it quite disturbing and like, it says something about us losing some part of our humanity, I think, in the process. So yeah, in principle, it's not good. So to summarize, AI cannot be separated from capitalism. Will it lead us simply to the end of capitalism and some like fully automated communism? Maybe not. Is it dangerous already? Yes. Can it be much more dangerous in the future? Also yes. So please be skeptical about mainstream narratives and simplistic views on AI, and be inquisitive, organize, and fight. Thank you very much.